The number on the screen was not small. It was just small enough to survive. Rachel Bennett sat at her kitchen table at 9:47 on a Thursday night, still wearing the black sweater she had worn to work, her laptop open, one hand around a cold mug of tea she had forgotten to drink. Near the front door, her son's sneakers were sitting on the mat. One sole had started to peel away from the shoe. Not enough to call it an emergency. Enough to make her feel like a bad mother every time he left for school. The cart on her screen had 3 things in it: a winter coat, a pair of shoes, 2 packs of school socks. The total was $286.40. That number made Rachel stop. Not because it was impossible. Not because she did not technically have the money. She had money in checking. Her paycheck was coming the next morning. She was not broke in the dramatic way people imagine when they talk about debt. She was just tight. Tight is different. Tight means you can pay for the thing, but you can already feel the next thing watching you. Rent was due in 4 days. Her car insurance was coming out on Monday. The fridge was not empty, but it was getting there. Her son Ethan had a school trip payment due next week, and she still had not paid the dentist bill from last month. So when the checkout screen offered her 4 payments of $71.60, Rachel did the math in her head. Not the real math, the survival math. $286.40 felt like a decision. $71.60 felt like breathing room. And that was the first contradiction. Rachel clicked the option because she was trying to be responsible. The same click also gave a piece of her next paycheck away before the paycheck existed. That is the part nobody feels at checkout. At checkout, the future is clean. The screen does not show rent standing in line. It does not show groceries. It does not show the credit card minimum, the old dentist bill, the car insurance, the forgotten subscription, the school lunch balance, or the other small payments already waiting for Friday morning. It only shows the smaller number. 4 payments of $71.60. Rachel looked at that number and felt the exact feeling the button was built to create: relief. She was 34 years old. She worked as a customer support team lead for a regional health insurance contractor outside Columbus, Ohio. She earned $58,800 a year before taxes. After taxes, health insurance, and a small retirement contribution she refused to cancel. Her take-home pay was about $3,720 a month. On paper, Rachel did not look like a financial disaster. That matters. Because the BNPL trap does not need a person to be reckless. It does not need them to be lazy. It does not need them to be addicted to luxury or desperate for status or bad with math in some cartoonish way. It works better on ordinary people. People with jobs. People with rent. People with children. People who know the difference between a want and a need, but still live in a world where needs do not always wait politely for payday. Rachel was not buying a designer bag. She was not buying a vacation. She was not trying to impress anyone. She was buying her son's shoes. That is why the decision felt safe. And for the next few hours, nothing bad happened. No alarm went off. No one called her. No warning appeared that said, "You have just sold part of next Friday." The order confirmation arrived. The first payment went through. Rachel closed the laptop, moved Ethan's old shoes aside with her foot, and went to bed, feeling like she had handled one small piece of life. The next morning, at 6:12, her paycheck landed. For 11 minutes, her bank account looked healthy. Then the past began collecting. Rent moved into pending. Car insurance moved into pending. A phone bill hit. A minimum payment on her credit card hit. A grocery delivery subscription she kept meaning to cancel hit. Then the first BNPL payment from 3 weeks ago. Then another one from a dentist bill. Then another one from work headphones she had bought when her old pair died in the middle of calls. Rachel watched her balance change and felt a strange anger rise in her chest. Not because the charges were fake. They were all real. That was the problem. Every charge could defend itself. The shoes were for Ethan. The dentist bill was medical. The headphones were for work. The school supplies were for school. The car tires were safety. The birthday gift was for her niece. Each purchase had a reason, but reasons do not protect a paycheck. By the time Rachel realized what she had bought, it was not the coat, the shoes, or the socks. It was the right to spend Friday before Friday existed. And that is where the trap begins. BNPL does not make things cheaper. It makes the future easier to spend. Rachel's rent was $1,425. Her car payment was $386. Car insurance was $151. Phone and internet together were $142. Utilities moved around depending on the month, but in winter they could climb above $300. Groceries and household basics had become their own moving target. Some months they were $640. Some months closer to $760. Gas was usually $180. Student loan payment $165. Credit card minimum $92. numbers. Those numbers did not make Rachel poor. They made her fragile. There is a difference. Poor means there is not enough money. Fragile means there might be enough money if nothing happens in the wrong order. A dentist appointment happening before payday can make you fragile. A car repair landing the same week as rent can make you fragile. A school payment, a birthday, a winter coat, and a grocery bill arriving in one 10-day stretch can make you fragile, even when your annual income looks respectable. Rachel knew this without using any fancy word for it. She had learned it through calendar pressure. The first half of the month always felt different from the second half. Rent lived at the front of the month like a guard dog. Once rent was paid, everything else had to fit behind it. Sometimes that worked. Sometimes it did not. This is where a normal budget starts to break down. A budget tells you what you should spend in a month. Life asks what you have available on a Tuesday. Rachel had a budget in her notes app. It was not perfect, but it existed. Rent, car, utilities, groceries, insurance, phone, credit card, student loan, gas, visible bills. The problem was that BNPL created a second budget, a hidden one. It lived inside apps, email confirmations, payment schedules, and automatic withdrawals that did not look dangerous when they were born. A $39.99 payment does not feel like a bill. A $28.75 payment does not feel like debt. A $54 payment 3 Fridays from now does not feel like anything at all. It feels like later. And later is where the damage hides. On Monday morning, Rachel drove Ethan to school. He wore the old shoes because the new ones had not arrived yet. She noticed the sole again when he stepped out of the car, and that small flash of guilt came back. It was not rational, exactly. The shoes were already ordered. The problem was already being solved. But money pressure does not always behave rationally. It turns small things into moral judgments. A child's old shoes become evidence. A late payment becomes evidence. A low bank balance becomes evidence. Evidence of what? Rachel was never quite sure. That she was falling behind. That she should earn more. That she should have planned better. That other adults had figured out something she had missed. At work, Marcus Lee leaned over the side of her cubicle wall and asked if she had seen the sale on noise-cancelling earbuds. Marcus was 29. Funny, organized at work, chaotic with money in the way that did not look chaotic from the outside. He always had a clean hoodie, new sneakers, and 3 opinions about every streaming show. He did not talk about debt. He talked about deals. They've got pay in 4, he said. It's basically nothing. Rachel laughed because she knew what he meant. Basically nothing. That was the phrase that made everything easier. Marcus did not feel like he was borrowing. He felt like he was managing. He had one app for clothes, another for electronics, another for tickets, and a store card he barely called a card. If you asked him whether he used credit, he would say, not really. That answer made sense to him. The old version of credit had a smell. Credit cards felt like interest, late fees, minimum payments, old statements, people getting in trouble, parents warning you, news stories, shame. BNPL did not carry the same smell. It looked clean. It looked modern. It looked like a budgeting feature that happened to live at checkout. The payment schedule was neat. The app interface was friendly. The language was soft. Split it. Pay over time. No interest if paid on schedule. Nothing about it felt like walking into a bank and asking for a loan. But debt does not stop being debt because the room is prettier. A claim against future income is still a claim against future income. Rachel did not think that way yet. Most people do not. They divide money into emotional categories. Rent is serious money. Groceries are necessary money. Credit card debt is bad money. A small installment is manageable money. That mental sorting can be useful. It helps people survive daily decisions without calculating their entire financial life every time they buy toothpaste. But it also creates blind spots. If the full price is $286.40, the brain has to confront $286.40. If the screen shows $71.60, the brain starts negotiating with a smaller opponent. That smaller opponent is easier to beat. Rachel could say no to $286.40. She could say yes to $71.60. The app did not change the price. It changed the feeling of the price. And feeling matters more than people want to admit. A cash payment hurts because you see money leave. A debit payment hurts less because the money moves invisibly. A credit card payment hurts even less at the moment of purchase because the pain is delayed. BNPL goes one step further. It delays the pain and splits it into pieces small enough to lose their emotional weight. It turns one large no into 4 smaller maybes. By Wednesday night, the coat arrived. Ethan liked it. That made the purchase feel feel even more justified. And this is the uncomfortable part. Many bad financial patterns are built out of good reasons. That is why shallow advice misses the point. It is easy to say people should stop buying things they cannot afford. It sounds tough. It sounds honest. It also explains almost nothing. Rachel could afford the coat in one sense. She had income. She had a paycheck. She had a need. She had a way to spread the timing. What she could not afford was the stack she had not counted. The next Friday, she opened her bank app again. The number was lower than she expected. Not disastrously low. Worse than that. Confusingly low. When money is disastrously low, you panic. When it is confusingly low, you guess. Rachel guessed groceries had been more expensive than usual. She guessed gas had added up. She guessed maybe the school lunch payment had been bigger than she remembered. Then she did what a lot of normal people do when a number feels threatening. She closed the app. Closing the app did not fix anything. It gave her 30 minutes of peace. 30 minutes can be enough to train a habit. Do not check, guess, avoid, hope, react later. That afternoon, she received a notification. Payment scheduled tomorrow. $48.25. She stared at it for a second before remembering the dentist bill. Ethan had needed a filling. Insurance had covered most of it, but not all of it. The office had offered a payment option through a third-party service. Rachel had said yes because the receptionist was polite, Ethan was anxious, and Rachel wanted to leave. Again, reasonable. Again, future money. That night, she opened the BNPL app, then another app, then her email, then her bank account. For the first time, she wrote all the upcoming payments on one sheet of paper, not in separate apps, not by merchant, not by memory. One paper, one future. $71.60 for the coat and shoes, $48.25 for the dentist, $39.99 for work headphones, $62.50 for car tires, $28.75 for school supplies, $54 for her niece's birthday gift, $36.40 for groceries. She had split last week when the total hit harder than expected. Then one more she had forgotten because the confirmation had gone to an old email address. Across the next two paychecks, the total was $642.49. Rachel sat there for a while. $642.49 was not enough to destroy her life. That is important. The trap does not always announce itself with disaster. Sometimes the number is just large enough to steal your margin, large enough to turn a normal week into a defensive week, large enough to make groceries feel like strategy, large enough to make every invitation feel like a threat, large enough to make you resent your own paycheck for being smaller than it looked. This was the midpoint Rachel had not seen coming. The obvious problem was not one purchase. The real problem was the invisible stack of future paycheck claims. One BNPL plan is a payment method. 10 BNPL plans are a private tax on your next paycheck. And unlike real taxes, this one did not fund roads, schools, hospitals, or anything public. It funded past relief. That is a brutal exchange. You get relief today. Your future self gets a smaller life for the next 2 weeks. Rachel looked at the paper and finally understood why payday had started to feel disappointing. The paycheck was not late. It was already spoken for. This is where income timing becomes more important than income itself. People like to talk about money as if it is one clean monthly number. You earn this. You spend that. The difference is your problem or your success. But households do not live inside monthly averages. They live inside timing. Payday is Friday. Rent is Monday. Insurance is the 12th. Groceries are whenever the fridge gives up. Children need things on school schedules, not payroll schedules. Cars break on their own schedule. Medical bills arrive whenever the office processes them. And BNPL enters this disorder with one seductive promise. You can move today's pressure into tomorrow. Sometimes that is useful. Sometimes it is a trap. The difference is whether tomorrow has room. Rachel had not been checking tomorrow. She had only been checking today. That night, her sister Lena called. Lena was 39, married, with 2 kids and a house that looked stable from the street. Lena and her husband made more money than Rachel, much more. On paper, they should have been comfortable, but Lena sounded tired. Daycare had gone up again. Their homeowner's insurance had jumped. One car needed repairs. The mortgage was fixed, but everything around it had become less fixed. Groceries cost more. Utilities cost more. Kids' activities cost more. The safe middle-class life they had bought was safe only if both incomes kept moving. No one got sick and no big bill landed in the wrong month. Lena mentioned she had used Pay in 4 for a set of tires. Then she laughed quickly, the way people laugh when they do not want a comment to become a conversation. Rachel almost told her about the $642.49. She did not. Shame has its own economy. It keeps people silent, and silence keeps bad math alive. The next day at work, Marcus was talking about a concert. He had bought his ticket using installments. Honestly, he said, I barely notice it. Rachel almost said, that is exactly the problem. But she did not. Not yet. Because Rachel was still protecting the old story. The old story was that she was a responsible person using a helpful tool. There was truth in that story. That is why it was hard to let go. The most dangerous financial stories are not completely false. They are half true. BNPL did help her solve timing problems. It did make necessary purchases possible without draining checking immediately. It did let her avoid putting more on the credit card. But the missing half was this. Every time Rachel used it, she was turning future income into today's spending power. BNPL does not make things cheaper. It makes the future easier to spend. Once Rachel saw the stack, the button looked different. But seeing the stack did not make the pressure disappear. That is another mistake people make when they give advice. They think clarity automatically creates control. It does not. Clarity is only the beginning. Rachel still had to buy groceries, still had to drive to work, still had to pay rent, still had a child who grew out of clothes and needed lunch money and got invited to birthday parties. The world did not reward her for understanding the trap. The world just kept charging her. 3 days later, she was in a grocery store at 6:18 in the evening. Ethan was with her, tired and hungry, asking for cereal that cost almost $7. Rachel was trying to compare unit prices while thinking about the dentist payment, the car insurance, and whether she had enough gas to wait until Friday. This is what scarcity does to the mind. It does not simply make life harder. It takes up space. It opens tabs in your head and refuses to close them. Rent tab, gas tab, dentist tab, school tab, paycheck tab, grocery tab, mother guilt tab. And while all those tabs are open, you are supposed to make clean financial decisions. People love to imagine that good money decisions come from discipline. Sometimes they do, but often they come from bandwidth. You need mental room to pause, compare, calculate, delay, and say no. Rachel did not have room that evening. At checkout, the grocery total was $118.73. She had expected $90. That $28 difference should not have mattered as much as it did. But when money is tight, small differences become loud. The app offered an option to split payment. Rachel stared at it. She knew better now. Not completely, but enough. Still, the option felt like relief. That is how these products become behavior, not through one dramatic failure, through repeated rescue. Every time a small payment saves the present, it trains you to look for the button again. Rachel did not split the groceries that night. She paid with debit. Then she sat in the car for 3 minutes before starting the engine. Not because she was proud, but because she was tired in a deeper way than sleep could fix. The next morning, a $39.99 payment failed. Work headphones. The message arrived while she was parked outside the office. Payment unsuccessful. Please update your method. It was only $39.99. That was what made it humiliating. A failed $900 payment would have felt like a crisis. A failed $39.99 payment felt like a verdict. Rachel felt heat rise in her face, even though she was alone in the car. She imagined someone at the company seeing it. She imagined some invisible file with her name in it. She imagined Marcus asking why she looked off. She imagined Ethan needing something else that week. So she did the easiest thing. She swiped the notification away. That small movement carried more meaning than it deserved. Swipe away the payment. Swipe away the shame. Swipe away the future for a few more hours. The problem with shame is that it feels like accountability, but it often produces avoidance. It makes people hide from the exact numbers that would help them regain control. Rachel did not need a lecture. She needed a dashboard. She did not need someone telling her to stop being irresponsible. She needed a way to see the future before the future collected. That is where most personal finance advice gets lazy. Budget better. Spend less. Be disciplined. Stop buying things you do not need. Some of that advice is true in the way a locked door is true. Yes, it is locked. No, that does not tell you where the key is. Rachel had a budget. The budget did not show the payment stack. Rachel understood that debt was risky. BNPL did not feel like debt. Rachel knew she should think before spending. The checkout was designed to make thinking shorter. Rachel knew she should avoid shame. The failed payment made shame automatic. So the solution could not be a motivational speech. It had to change the environment around the decision. That Sunday night, Rachel put Ethan to bed, cleared the kitchen table, and opened her laptop again. Same table as the first checkout, different purpose. She opened every BNPL app. She opened her email. She opened her bank account. She opened the Notes app where her old budget lived. Then she made a new list and titled it Future Paycheck Claims. That title mattered. Not shopping, not installments, not little payments. Claims. A claim is something already standing in line for your money. Rachel wrote the date first, then the amount, then the merchant, then the paycheck it would hit. The list was ugly. That was good. A hidden ugly number is dangerous. A visible ugly number is information. She saw that the next paycheck had $214.34 in BNPL payments scheduled against it before she bought one new thing. The paycheck after that had $168.90. The one after that had less if she stopped adding new plans. If. That word sat there like a challenge. Rachel's first rule became simple. Before looking at available balance, look at future claims. Because available balance lies by omission. A bank app tells you what is in the account today. It does not automatically tell you who has already been promised a piece of the next deposit. Her second rule was to rename BNPL, not as a moral punishment, as accuracy. It was not pay later. It was short-term debt. It was not 4 easy payments. It was 4 future paycheck claims. It was not basically nothing. It was a small private tax she had chosen. That renaming changed the emotional category. The same way, just one drink feels different from alcohol before driving. Language changes the decision. Rachel needed language that made the real cost harder to hide. Her third rule was the 72-hour delay, not 24. 24 was too easy to wait out emotionally. She could still keep the purchase warm in her head. 72 hours forced the wanting to cool down. The rule was not for true needs. If Ethan needed medicine, she bought medicine. If the car needed a repair to get to work, she handled the car. But if the purchase was a want pretending to be urgent, it waited. 3 days. No split payments during the waiting period. No saving the card. No checkout account logged in. Just wait. The point was not to become a monk. The point was to stop letting checkout speed decide for her. Her fourth rule was sharper. Never split wants. Not because wants are bad. Wants are human. A birthday gift can be a want and still matter. A decent pair of headphones can be a want and still improve a workday. A nicer coat can be a want layered on top of a need. But splitting a want teaches the brain a dangerous lesson. It teaches the brain that desire can become affordability if sliced thin enough. Rachel wrote the question underneath the rule. Am I solving a real timing problem, or am I making a want feel affordable? That question irritated her. Good questions often do. Her fifth rule was paycheck margin. She decided no single paycheck could have more than 10% already claimed by BNPL or similar installment payments. Her bi-weekly paycheck was usually about $1,860. 10% was $186. If future claims against a paycheck were already above $186, the answer was no. Not maybe. Not after I think about it. No. This rule was not perfect. Some months would break it. Emergencies do not care about rules. But it gave her a boundary that did not depend on mood. Mood is a terrible accountant. Her sixth rule was to delete saved checkout options. This one felt almost childish at first. Delete the app. Remove saved cards. Log out. Clear one-click payment. Make the path longer. Rachel had assumed self-control meant becoming stronger. But sometimes self-control means making the wrong action slower. If the button is built to reduce friction, add friction back. The extra 30 seconds can be the difference between impulse and decision. Her seventh rule was one cash-only week each month. Not because cash was magical, because cash made spending visible again. During that week, groceries, gas, small household items, and Ethan's small expenses had to come from a fixed amount. No split payments, no app rescue, no future claims. The first cash-only week was uncomfortable. Rachel hated it. That was useful information. The discomfort showed how much she had started relying on future money to smooth present pressure. The goal was not to live like that forever. The goal was to remember what money leaving felt like. The next few weeks were not clean. That would be fake. Rachel still made mistakes. She forgot one payment until the notification hit. She had to move money from savings to avoid an overdraft. She snapped at Ethan when he asked for something at Target, then apologized in the car. She almost used BNPL for a jacket for herself because it was on sale and because she was tired of always buying only what was necessary. This part matters. A defense system is not a personality transplant. It is a set of rails. You can still lean over the edge. You just fall less often. By the end of the month, Rachel had not become debt-free. she had not built a massive emergency fund. She had not unlocked some secret wealthy mindset. She had done something less dramatic and more valuable. She had stopped being surprised by her own paycheck. That is the first sign of control returning, not abundance, predictability. On the next payday, she opened her bank app before the automatic withdrawals began. Then she opened the future paycheck claims list. There were still payments there, but now they were known. $48.25, $62.50, $28.75. Known numbers are not painless, but they are less powerful than hidden ones. Rachel paid rent. She bought groceries. She did not feel rich. She felt oriented. That word matters. Oriented. Like facing the right direction in a dark room. Marcus noticed she was quieter at lunch and asked if everything was okay. Rachel almost gave the normal answer. Yeah, just tired. Instead, she said, I added up all my pay later stuff. Marcus made a face. Brave, she laughed. Stupid. Honestly, I should have done it earlier. No, he said. I mean brave because I absolutely do not want to know mine. There it was. The shame loop in one sentence. I do not want to know. Not because knowing is useless, because knowing creates responsibility. Rachel did not preach to him. She just said, it was worse in my head before I wrote it down. That was true. The numbers were bad. The fog had been worse. A week later, Lena called again. This time, Rachel told her about the future paycheck claims list. Lena went quiet for a second. Then she said, I think I need that. Not because Lena was reckless, because Lena was trapped in a different version of the same timing machine. Higher income, higher fixed costs, same shrinking margin. This is why the BNPL story is bigger than one app or one person. It lives inside a financial culture that has trained households to survive through access. Access to credit, access to installments, access to overdraft, access to cash advances, access to emergency financing. Access can be useful. Access can also hide the fact that life has become too expensive for the margin people actually have. When every problem becomes financeable, the pressure does not disappear. It becomes scheduled. That is the modern trick. The emergency becomes a payment. The payment becomes a stack. The stack becomes a smaller paycheck. The smaller paycheck creates the next emergency. And around it all, the language stays soft, flexible, convenient, empowering, manageable. But convenience is not neutral when it changes behavior. The merchant sees a completed sale. The platform sees transaction volume. The lender sees future cash flow. The customer sees breathing room. Everyone gets what they want, except the future version of the customer. Consider Omar Patel. Omar ran a small online home goods shop from a warehouse space he shared with another seller. He was not a villain. He was not sitting in a dark room trying to ruin anyone's life. He was trying to keep his business alive. Shipping costs had gone up. Ad costs had gone up. Customers abandoned carts constantly. People would browse, add items, reach checkout, see the total, and leave. Then Omar added BNPL. The difference was immediate. More customers finished the purchase. Average order size rose. People bought the lamp and the side table, not just the lamp. They bought the bedding set instead of only the pillowcases. They bought the bundle because the bundle could be split. Omar paid fees for the service, but the extra sales made it worth it. From his side, BNPL looked like a tool. From Rachel's side, it looked like relief. From the platform side, it looked like a machine that could turn hesitation into revenue. Nobody in that chain needed to hate Rachel. That is what makes the system harder to see. The harm does not require cruelty. It only requires incentives. If a smaller payment makes people buy more, someone will offer the smaller payment. If delaying pain increases conversion, someone will delay the pain. If splitting a price makes the full cost feel less real, someone will split the price. If saved checkout details reduce hesitation, someone will save the details. The button exists because it works. And what it works on is not stupidity. It works on human attention under pressure. Rachel understood this more clearly the next time she found herself at checkout. It was 6 weeks after the quote. Same kitchen table, same hour of night, different cart. This time, the total was $248.90. A pair of replacement jeans for Ethan. A desk lamp Rachel needed because the old one flickered during evening work calls. A hoodie she wanted but did not need. The BNPL option appeared exactly where it always appeared. 4 payments of $62.23. There it was again, the smaller number. The old feeling came back quickly. That is another honest detail. Awareness does not delete temptation. Rachel still wanted the smaller number to be the real number. She still wanted the purchase to fit. She still wanted to feel like a person who could handle normal life without turning every cart into a court case. The world had not changed. The app was still clean. The button was still easy. The pressure was still real. But Rachel had changed the next step. She did not ask, "Can I survive $62.23 today?" She asked, "What part of my next paycheck is already sold?" Then she opened the future paycheck claims list. The next paycheck already had rent pressure, one remaining tire payment, school trip money, groceries, and car insurance. The paycheck was not empty. It had a line. Rachel looked back at the cart. The jeans stayed. The lamp stayed. The hoodie came out. She paid with debit. It still hurt. That is important too. Good financial decisions do not always feel good. Sometimes they feel like losing a small argument with yourself. But when the order confirmation arrived, Rachel noticed something different. There was no future payment schedule attached. No Friday 3 weeks from now quietly claimed. No small automatic withdrawal waiting to surprise her. No private tax on the next paycheck. Just the purchase. Paid for once, painful once, finished once. That was the win. Not glamorous, not viral, not the kind of transformation people sell in personal finance courses, but real. Rachel did not escape the modern credit economy. Almost nobody does. She still lived in a world where costs rose faster than comfort, where timing mattered, where checkout pages were engineered, where companies profited from frictionless spending, and where normal life kept producing expenses at inconvenient times. The difference was that she no longer confused a small payment with a small cost. That is the lesson. A $71.60 payment can be manageable. 4 of them can be manageable. 7 of them can turn a paycheck into a waiting room. BNPL is not always evil. Sometimes it solves a real timing problem. But it becomes dangerous when it makes future income feel like money you already have. That is the line. The future is not available balance. It is not extra money. It is not a silent partner at checkout. Your next paycheck already has a job before it arrives. Rent may have a claim. Food may have a claim. Insurance may have a claim. Gas may have a claim. Children may have a claim. Emergencies may have a claim. And every time a checkout screen says, pay later, it is asking whether it can stand in that line too. The cleanest traps do not look like traps at first. They look like options. They look like flexibility. They look like relief. At the exact moment, relief is hardest to resist. Rachel's story did not begin when she ran out of money. It began when the future started looking spendable.